Close, but no cigar. Welcome to the Voice of College Football channel, the Michigan channel. I am one of your hosts, Desmond. I've got Mark Rogers here with us. I've got my co-host, Dre, with us as well. Thanks so much for joining us. While you are here, please hit the like and subscribe button and also share the videos out on social media. We definitely appreciate the support. Also, in the description, you should see places where you can contribute to the show. We definitely, as I mentioned, appreciate it. So, gentlemen, before I fire off my first question to you, how you guys doing, Dre? How's it hanging? You're a little low on Saturday for our post game. So how you holding up, man?
Steady, steady. Doing steady, man. You have a few days to kind of let things digest, and um, I would say my emotions are a lot more uh, balanced, but my thought process hasn't changed very much. So, but hey, we'll see what happens, man.
Sounds good, Mark. What about yourself? How you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm doing well. Of course, I don't have to suffer through the emotional strain here, so we'll be good to Dre today. But I'm doing well. I'm doing well. I enjoyed the football game. It's nice to watch, whether it's the NFL or college football, a game that you're not emotionally attached to, that you can just kind of kick back and say, boys, let her rip, let it fly. I just want to see a good game. Let it go. And I thought it was a great football game just to watch. But I can understand. I saw the statistic 0-9 against ranked teams on the road. Man, that's a lot of games. A lot of
Especially
games.
to not luck up into one of the wins. Myself and Dre, we were actually talking around lunchtime today, but we even talked about I'm an Alabama fan, and just of not even having like a kick six, just kind of the odd crazy things that happen with college football to get one, at least one out of those nine.
So
But
we're diving in early today, huh? That's what we're doing, gentlemen.
no,
We're
no, no, no,
diving
no, no,
early.
no,
We're
no. We're
diving in
not. We're
early,
not.
huh?
Nope, 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 nope. So my first question to you, gentlemen, is number one. I'm gonna make it simple. Put it in three easy buckets for you. So the question is, what percent of blame do you give to the Michigan loss? And basically, the way we'll do it is Michigan players and coaches is one bucket. Michigan State is another, and because I know it's going to come up in our live chat, refs are going to be another bucket. So the total
Yes.
is 100%, and go from there. So I'll start it off because that's kind of like a kind of weird one. So I'll give you guys some time, but for me, mine is 50% Michigan, 40% Michigan State, and 10% refs. I'm a big believer that when it comes to football, more often than not, games are lost versus games won. It's more so mistakes that you make, whether it's penalties or turnovers or just mistakes overall. That is more often than not what's going to lose you the football game. And I know that the refs are going to come up with the multiple reviews, but the big one is the Peyton Thorne fumble. I do think it was a fumble, but like I said, that happened in the second quarter. You had a full half of football to play after that, and before you get to the refs, you've got to talk about the false starts on the you get a false start on third or I'm sorry, fourth and inches, then your punter mishandles the snap. You get the Blake Corum drop. You got Cornelius Johnson drop. You get the JJ substitutions. You got the substitution issues when Michigan State went tempo. And settling for field goals. So to me, it can't be the refs were the reason that they lost the game. When you get this wasn't a call in 2 minutes, with 2 minutes left in the game. Like this was a call with 2 minutes left in the half. Like you had a whole nother half to overcome that, in which Michigan did. I mean, it was 23-14 at that point, and you made it 30-14 in the third quarter. So to me, that's my breakdown, my percentages, and I wanted to make sure to try to give Michigan State credit too, because they do deserve it. They weathered the storm. They were down. midway through the third quarter, 30-14, and they kept fighting and making plays when they when they absolutely had to. So definitely wanted to give them some some credit as well. But that's my breakdown. So I'm 50% Michigan, 40% Michigan State, and 10% refs. Dre, you look like you're chomping at the bit, so I'll kick it off to you.
No, I mean I'm gonna try to give a perspective that's not just regurgitating everything you just said, but even though I agree with 100% of it, um, you know, I, I'll go 60% MSU, 40%. No, I'm sorry, 60% MSU, 35% Michigan, and 5% review or refs or whatever it is, right? Because I don't want to undershoot or diminish what Michigan State did out there. To be down and being a 16-point hole. Your quarterback had 2 early turnovers in the first quarter. This is the biggest game of the season, a lot on the line, and to not wilt, but to keep throwing punches and to really go on they went on a 23-3 run to close that game out, essentially playing perfect football for the most part because they had to. They had a very low, small margin of error. They had to convert multiple fourth downs. They had to convert two-point conversions, which is not easy. Essentially, Michigan had 4 chances to stop them from tying the game. Not just 2. It wasn't just 2 scores. They had 4 chances. He had 2 touchdowns and 2 two-point conversions, which is why I don't hear any excuses from Michigan. And they did what they had to do, and it was incredible to see, and it was spearheaded by their head coach. Where Desmond, we threw out the question who had the coaching advantage going to that game, and we both picked Mel Tucker, and people thought we were crazy. They thought we were absolutely crazy, but I thought on Saturday you saw that. The way he spearheaded that program, not allowing those guys to quit, understanding the urgency of when he was scoring or on certain drives, not punting or kicking field goals, as Michigan would do, going forward on fourth down. That you got to give MSU a ton of credit. So I give the majority of the credit at 60%. Michigan 35% because of self-inflicted mistakes. Kicking too many field goals, for example. Not wrapping up and tackling Kenneth Walker Jr. where they had the third when they had him in the backfield, when they had him at the line of scrimmage. It wasn't like MSU's offensive line just mauled Michigan's front seven. It wasn't necessarily like that. A lot of the long runs Kenneth Walker III was doing on his own. Making guys miss. Bursting out with speed. So Michigan, they definitely hurt themselves, and also Mike McDonald. Not understanding, and Jim Harbaugh too. After a while, when you keep getting caught, if you substituting guys off the field, you're having penalties, and then Michigan State is having these chunk plays because you're not set, and everybody has their assignments set, ready to go. Yeah, that's on the coaching staff for not helping guys get ready. How many times do you see Michigan defenders, pointing, trying to communicate? It's like chaos. Right, and all of a sudden, ball snap, boom, there goes Kenneth Walker III. Right, so you got to put a lot of self-inflicted mistakes on Michigan, and then 5%. If you want to give the refs, you can, and I'll only say one play that will blame on the refs for that 5%. It was a monumental play. I mean, that's a 7-point swing. That the strip sack, which look, I agree, it's the wrong call. Mostly because I actually think it was close, the actual play, but it's because they ruled it a fumble on the field. And the general consensus is anytime there's a review to overturn a call, there needs to be
conclusive or indisputable
conclusive evidence to point to otherwise. And no angle I saw showed that, right? It wasn't that it was close. It wasn't that, oh yeah, you can say Thorns down. No, that's not indisputable, right? And they overturned it anyway. And that was a big call. But it was a lot more that went into that game that decided the outcome. And I thought MSU deserves the bulk of the respect and a percentage of the way that game turned out.
Mark, what about yourself? What do you think the breakdown is?
Yeah, so what Dre said about Mel Tucker and the coaching difference, disparity, whatever you want to call it, it's impressive to me. Not that I can point to any particular plays. The personnel groupings of the issues on defense was pretty obvious thing, and don't know if you're moving levels from college to the NFL game or NFL to college, you would think that one of your checklist items would be, okay, I want to know the rules. What are the rules differences on this level of the sport? There are some nuances that are different, and am I going to have to coach differently because of that? We're going to have to teach and instruct differently. What are we going to have to do, or am I going to have to manage the game differently because of that? So we're in game 8, and apparently nobody had pushed that button. Nobody had, forced them. But as Dre said, it was just obvious. It was just on 3 or 4 occasions a fire drill, and there was a play run where they weren't set. And so that's an issue. Obviously, that's an issue. The other thing is just, again, the impression I get on Mel Tucker and why he is so impressive is that it seems as though what he tells the media, the fans, everybody outside the locker room that he is doing in implementing a culture, it's not just like, this is what we're hoping to build and this is, the kind of the ideal, but we're doing our best. No, we see it. We see this team execute it. We talk a lot in the fourth quarter about the teams that execute the best in the red zone, don't turn the ball over. All those things are true. The thing that gets rarely talked about is, and you guys know from playing different sports and especially football, that the best conditioned team usually does win the fourth quarter. I don't know if that's quite as true as it used to be, because of the substitution packages. Wink, wink, Mike McDonald. But there are less players that are just playing every play, and it's a less physical sport in the box. But still, it's meaningful to be the more conditioned team. And Mel Tucker says we're going to be the most conditioned team on the field every Saturday, and looks like they were. And the team just has already taken on the personality of their coach, that we're determined, we play with poise, determination, we're going to be tougher than you, we're going to be better conditioned than you, and we refuse to lose.
Yeah,
pretty impressive. Percentages. So fill me in on the refs. Besides the strip sack, one thing that I usually do see on Twitter for most big games from obviously the losing fan base would be, screenshots of this was a hold, that was a hold. You see those, and I did see those.
Look. And here's one thing about holding calls or not holding calls. Here's a bit of advice. There is holding on every play.
Yep.
Okay. Someone is holding someone. Okay. It either gets caught or it doesn't. All right. So the one time that you get caught for holding, you probably should got caught before. Same thing with the other team. All right. So, and I think I already know what people are talking about. It was a run to the outside when we were in the red, getting close to the red zone. I think it was Corum, and they called a holding on Andrew Anthony, right? That put him back 10 yards. I mean, look, it was close. It was close. Anytime the running back and the receiver doesn't know it because they have their back turned to the running back coming up behind them. Anytime the running back is heading towards the sideline, the receiver is there, and obviously the defender is trying to rip and get off to force the running back to the sideline. You get, if the ref has the right angle, it looks like the receiver is engaged and basically preventing the corner or whoever's out there from getting to the ball carrier. So it looks like a hold. I thought it was a solid block. by Andrew Anthony, but I can understand why it could be seen as a whole in that situation. And actually, if it can start off as a good block, but based on how the play is turning out, it could turn into a hold. So either way, my point is, I'm not going to trip about holding calls, PI calls. There's pass interference, offensive pass interference, defensive pass interference. To me, every call. That's what hand fighting is. A lot of times the guys are hand fighting, pushing off. It's all about, to me, who does the last move right before the ball gets there, right? I don't really. Sometimes, yes, are there some egregious ones? Like a receiver has a corner beat and the corner trips him, or deliberately grabs his shirt jersey. Okay, those are very, very blatant. But for the most part, those 50-50 calls, they are what they are, guys. I mean, so in my doing that, it most likely is being a little picky, and they're not. It's not necessarily saying, I'm not saying that they're wrong, that it couldn't be a call, but it can go either way. That call probably didn't decide the game. Another thing, guys, I was listening to what Mark was saying and I thought about what you said, Desmond. Even after Saturday, and this really hurts too, I still don't think MSU is the better talented. It's the more talented team. Talented. Because what I saw was an MSU team that played with a higher sense of urgency. I mean, they had to convert 2-point conversions. Like, I felt like they played with more concentration, more mental toughness. But in terms of talent, I still don't think that they are the more talented team. Now, I'm not saying there's some huge discrepancy between the two, but I still think like there's more NFL players on the Michigan roster, right? And that's what's like interesting. Watching those two go head to head, I thought Cade McNamara was a better quarterback on Saturday, right?
Oh, by far, yeah.
It's interesting. Now, Kenneth Walker III, I think we were talking about Desmond, you asked a question about who had the better rushing attack, MSU or Michigan. Kenneth
I
Walker
think we were
III
consensus too. I think we were consensus on Michigan has the better running attack, and
yes.
Michigan State having the best running back, just individual.
Yeah, and that was proven. I mean, Kenneth Walker III is fantastic, and but still, my overall point, and I don't want to talk over you guys, is that I still, even after all that happened, what sucks is that I didn't come away from that game believing, wow, MSU may be more talented than we are. No, they may be the better football team right now in terms of focus and culture and juice, but maybe not talent.
Yeah, there were times in that game, for as much as Michigan's defense let down in the second half, that Hutchinson and Ajabo were coming off the edge. They were fierce coming off the edge, and that was impressive too. And what's kind of strange is that with all the talk that we've had this year about Michigan's lack of explosiveness on offense and taking shots and all that, man, 552 yards against a good defense. They were clicking. It was self-inflicted wounds. They didn't get stopped much.
Yeah, it's that I think that's the tough part, is you come out of the game with Cade having the best game of his entire career, and you end up losing that game. It was tough. I think we talked about, if you would earlier on in the season, that you're going to have a team that's going to stop you from doing your bread and butter, what you love to do week in and week out. And I wouldn't say Michigan State, shut down the Michigan's run game. I just think Michigan was aggressive, especially early on with the play calling and throwing the football. And, Cade was absolutely dialed in, and we talked about it at the half of I just really did not see a reason to bring JJ in the game the way that Cade was playing. He just was on. I mean, that the first throw he had in the game, I mean, you could probably there's probably 3 quarterbacks in college football that are making that throw, that anticipation, right down the field on time. I mean, Anthony didn't have to do anything except just literally hold his hand up right. I mean, Cade put it legitimately right on his chest. I mean, that was and for him to come out that way, and then just continue to play that way. I just thought, you just ride with him. I mean, he's playing well, he's dialed in, like just just roll with him. But go ahead,
Yeah,
Mike.
I thought McNamara was exceptional. I love when they give you the camera angle from behind the quarterback when he's making that kind of throw. And there's a few throws that he made. He made a lot of good throws, but there were a few exceptional ones with somebody like right in his chest. And what always impresses me with a guy that's playing at a high level like that is when you consider what decision he had to make and where the ball is or where the receivers and the defenders are when he's releasing the ball versus what he's anticipating it to be like 2.5 seconds later when the ball arrives, and he made a couple of throws like that where at the time that he's making that decision, you don't really see it, but, and then suddenly he's got a dude in his chest and he's still delivering and threading a needle. And, yeah, he made some great throws. I thought he played out of his mind compared to what we've seen in the past.
Yeah, that was high level quarterbacking right there. And I get it that, we're not saying Michigan State's defense is a number one defense or anything like that, but to me, I really don't care that much. I mean, that's a top 10 team, and it's not as if their offense is a 50-point per game offense like that. They go hand in hand. So to me, I give Cade all the credit with how he played. He was absolutely dialed in, and especially for a guy, early on this season who had I think 50 pass attempts in the first 4 games to come out in this game. I think he had 44 pass attempts, something like that. He was really good. He was really good. And tough part too, I want to kind of touch on Mike McDonald was because I feel like he has been so good this year. It's really tough and unfortunate that the defense had those substitution issues and the spotlight is on him for those, for those kind of snafus. Because I think he's been really good this season as far as, with how he's handled the defense.
But you know what? To me, that falls on Jimmy as well, though. Because you have to recognize that as the head coach. Okay, things are. All right, hold on a second. This is a mess. Time out. Because
yeah.
Still remember this too. Mike McDonald is a first-year defensive coordinator.
Mm-hmm.
People have to keep that in mind. He was a linebackers coach for the Ravens. He's a first-year defensive coordinator. He's done really well.
Yep.
But this is the biggest game he's had to coach in this position. Harbaugh, if all this experience, you have to recognize that, okay, this is where the head coach, who's always really the overseer, has to be like, you know what?
Or should be.
Yeah, it should be. Timeout. We got to fix this right now. Right? Especially at that point in the game, because you can feel like MSU at that point in time, they were playing with that sense of urgency that we're down 2 scores. They're essentially playing desperate, right? Like that they have to get something going. They have to get in the end zone. Harbaugh has to recognize that and be like, you know what? Let's stop this right now. This is really the main, earlier in the game, this is really the main situations in which they're scoring on us when they have us up tempo. Mm-hmm. We got to nip this in the bud,
And the tough part is it's not that difficult of a rule to explain. Like, right. If the offense isn't subbing anybody, then the ref is not going to stop the offense from snapping the ball as fast as they want.
He should be stopping Mike. Harbaugh has to Mike. He has to hesitate. Right. Mike, no. We're not going that package. Either that or call a timeout. Like that you cannot allow. And that's where the head coaches don't catch the passes. They don't throw the passes. They don't do the blocks. They don't have the defensive assignments. But when they are the overseer, and you can see that's where the big money comes into play. The big time coaches like have those moments where their decisions really do lay the framework of what happens in the game. Mel Tucker choosing when to go for on 4th down, when not to, choosing what play 2-point conversions. Those are the situations coaches when they're to have the lead, understanding when and how to slow a guy's momentum. Now, look, I've never seen a coach. Maybe you guys have in the first half. Now, it didn't work. Use 3 timeouts to try to ice a kicker. I've never seen it in the first half. I've seen it at end games, but to me, even though it didn't work, it showed me a sense of, I go back to a sense of urgency, but also understanding, like, look, every point in this game matters. You know,
Mhm.
we're not going to just concede this field goal. We want to do whatever we can.
And I can't take those timeouts with me into
Right,
halftime, so it's
exactly.
not
I'm
like
doing
I get
whatever I can.
double in the second half if I don't use them. So
I've seen many coaches. I don't know about you guys. I've seen many times coaches won't call a timeout in the first half, going to halftime like that. I'm like, all right, whatever. He'll kick a field goal. Let's get into the locker room. Let's go over. They're probably busy thinking about what they're going to discuss at halftime, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, it's just those one. That's the difference between a in-game coaching advantage and not.
Yeah. I have a request, Dre, of you as the head of the Michigan fan base, because
Oh
you're the one
God,
that has a
some people may
microphone.
not be happy about that. They think I'm a little bit. I don't. See, I'm
That
not
might
mad.
be true.
You
But
know,
here's my request.
yeah.
We got to put the little brother thing away. Like we've
Dude,
got like
don't do that. Don't
that's got to go away.
no rational Michigan. I'm sorry. No rational Michigan fan uses the little brother thing anymore.
Desmond
That is
Howard did it on freaking game day when Mel Tucker came on the set. Like I don't know. I don't think he put the little in there, but I think everybody knew the connotation that he meant of like the whole little brother thing. I'm like, dude.
Yeah. Before Saturday, you were not. MSU won 9 out of the last 13 matchups. There's nothing little brother about that. Okay. You know, like stop. And even now that you don't see a lot of rational Michigan fans doing that. They may do, but stop that. You really see it from like former players and stuff like that. You know, like Braylon and Taylor Lewan. Shut up, Taylor Lewan. You were 1-4 versus MSU. Dude, stop.
Ooh, was he?
Yes, he
Holy cow.
was.
That's
Like,
rough.
dude, stop. And of course, here's what irritates me: is that the people who do that, you're fueling MSU. Don't you see?
Yes.
It drives me insane. Like you're fueling them. Stop.
Yes.
Like
I don't want to do anything to possibly make the other team play harder. I don't want to do anything to do that. Heck, even for our channel, like we were talking about it with Mark a couple weeks ago of, trying to overtake the Oklahoma channel as far as subscribers. And Mark's like, "Oh, is this like a competition between you two?" I'm like, "No. I'm not saying anything to the Oklahoma channel, Jason over there." I'm like, listen, we're playing the game. But I don't want to fuel them. Like, so it's the same thing in football. Like, I don't want to be the reason that, a middle linebacker is out there headhunting my my running back because he's got a quote of me talking crap, calling him a little brother, or we don't know anybody on their defense and who are these guys and all that stuff.
Sorry, real quick comment on the whole Braylon thing. Like, here's what I find interesting about the whole Braylon thing. Braylon's wrong either two ways. One, if you're gonna come be on that podcast and whatever you were doing, live stream, whatever it was, and you're gonna comment on the game, if you don't know any MSU players, you probably shouldn't be commenting on the game. That's one. Which I don't believe, by the way. I do believe he at least knows some players like Panashuk, and Brantley, etc. Right? So I don't believe him. But if that's true, he didn't know any MSU players. Well, you shouldn't be commenting in the first place. Or two, you do know MSU players, and you're trying to be a smart aleck. You're trying to throw shade, and either way is
not helpful.
Not helpful. If you don't know what you're talking about, we shouldn't be on here talking. If you do know what you're talking about, but you're trying to throw shade, you're definitely not helping. So like that's just.
And they're taking all of that. I guarantee Friday night after their walkthrough and team meeting that Mel Tucker was playing clips of all that stuff of Braylon and Taylor and probably Mike Hart with the little brother thing, how all that started. And I'm almost sure of it. I'm almost
you think
sure.
Mike Hart on the sideline is thinking about it like, man, this is
really
all my
shouldn't
fault.
have said that.
This is all my fault.
And I heard that he was the only coach who was not available to the media either after the game or maybe the Monday.
I want somebody to ask him. Like, can we get Mike Hart? Enough of Jimmy and his bland, non-inspired, emotionless interviews. Let me talk to Mike. Let's talk to Mike. And this is going to be, especially after MSU games, and we just have one question. Mike, how do you feel about your comment back in 07 and its impact on this rivalry? I just need to see what he's going to say, right? I would love to hear what he's going to say. And to his credit, at the time, Michigan was beating MSU, And Mike, by all means, is one of the best running backs that we've had at Michigan. You know, not in terms of NFL, but in terms of his production at Michigan. And he was still 22 years old, right? You know, made a silly comment, but it had a ripple effect in this rivalry for years. And it was just funny because I didn't go in a lot of the game. My cart was right behind Jim Harbaugh, and they called him once on the sideline. And I was thinking about after the game, I wonder what he's thinking, like why this collapse is going on. Like,
I
man,
really shouldn't have said that.
yeah,
Really
probably wasn't the best choice of words.
Yeah, that's funny.
Jeez.
I mean, so obviously Michigan's got Indiana this week, but where do they go from here? Is it, I've seen, I think some people had commented that if you go went out, to the Ohio State game, that you potentially hold your own, have you still control your own destiny.
No,
Which that I guess in terms of the Big Ten, that's possible, but you don't control your own destiny.
no, you need a little help. But I
Right.
will say that the college football playoff rankings that came out last night for Michigan to be at 7. And Desmond, I gave you a call. We were talking during lunch about this. At 11, they need some help. An 11-1 Michigan team that would have beat Penn State and Ohio State. And that's just that's going to be a really high selling point for the committee, because and let's be honest, you want Michigan viewership, and that does play. It shouldn't, and it probably is a low percentage of the weight on a weight scale of how they choose their teams. But when they're having their final discussion, it will be part of that discussion. Michigan's viewership impact, and because it's about winning, but it's about dollars, too. So
If
no,
we
they
had
can
a
control their own destiny,
conference,
but they can make it really, really a really strong argument.
so the scenario that we talked about at lunch that you wanted me to bring up was
Right.
if Michigan beats Ohio State. So Michigan wins out, they beat Ohio State. Michigan State wins the Big Ten title, but they lose to Ohio State. Would Michigan at that point get into the college football playoff? So I'll repeat it again because that was a lot. So essentially, Michigan is going to win out. So they would beat Penn State, they'd beat Ohio State, Indiana, and Maryland. At that point, so just from that, Ohio State would have 2 losses. They would have lost to Oregon and Michigan.
Right.
Michigan State would win the Big Ten title, but lose to Ohio State. So Michigan State would have one conference.
No. Yes, you're right. I'm sorry. You're right. That's correct.
So Michigan State would have one conference loss, and that would be to Ohio State. And that would be Michigan State's only loss. They would go to the Big Ten title game, and they win the Big Ten.
Mm-hmm.
Would it be possible, and Mark, we can pose that question to you, if Michigan and Michigan State could potentially both get into the playoff?
All right. If you want me to go first, just so I can keep that in my brain,
You go first.
the least
Yes.
amount of time. All right. So Michigan State's the Big Ten champ.
Yes.
They have one loss, and that's to Ohio State.
12-1.
Scenario.
Ohio State's lost 2 games. Forget that. Michigan's 11-1.
Correct. They would beat
Okay.
Ohio State. Yep, win out. Could potentially get 2 teams in.
Well, yeah, I can draw up all sorts of scenarios. So that's what I've been doing for the last
Yeah, sure on that.
day or so. People call with all sorts of scenarios. They want to try to slide Purdue in the playoff. But let's go so there a lot's going to have to happen. So let's go reasonable situation that could possibly get them there would be, the ACC. Wake Forest has to go on this run that they're not going to go on. Okay.
And I think you probably need Georgia to beat Alabama to knock Alabama out of the. I think 2 losses will put them out.
Yeah, you just need Georgia to, again, aside from Missouri beating Georgia and all these kind of crazy things that won't happen. Realistically, Georgia, just one SEC team. It's Georgia. They're in. They knock out Alabama. Maybe Alabama loses some other game. Because I don't know if the committee's not setting up Alabama to lose to Georgia in the SEC championship game and still stay in the top 4.
Oh my
with the number
gosh.
2 ranking.
No, they would not get away with that. No way.
I
A
sure hope
two-loss
not.
team?
I honestly, I hope not.
No.
Like, you don't deserve to be in with 2
Two
losses.
losses? No.
Think about this. Think about this. Alabama's number 2 right now. They will have beaten LSU. That's not a great feat, but still a pretty good, talented LSU team. Beat Auburn, who's right now at number 12, the last game of the season. So they're only going to solidify their number 2. It's only going to become stronger. And then they play the consensus number 1. Nobody has any question, no doubt, number 1 team in the country in the SEC championship game, and they lose 31-30 on a last-second field goal. You don't think they might only drop a spot or 2?
Man, yeah, that's a good.
Mark,
Man.
I could see that if if there was more signature wins throughout the course of the season for Alabama.
Yeah.
Let's say Alabama.
Well, they had like the year that like Ole Miss and Mississippi State were both at one point in the top 4.
Yeah, like I think that
back
they'll
when
need
Dak
more
was there.
signature wins. Like I understand like the backloaded and some of those really good wins towards the end of that schedule, but I think to have 2 losses. I feel like this goes across the board for any team. I think for any two losses for any team with 2 losses to get into the college football playoff, you would have had to have a schedule in which you played 5 or 6 top 15 ranked teams or something like that, like something crazy where you're like the SEC, early to mid 2000s, where you had like it seemed like 5 or 6 teams that were like, or 6 teams that were in the top 25, right? And Bama beat 5 of them, right, or 6 of them. It's like, okay, yeah, you went through a true gauntlet. I understand what you're saying. The committee's giving Bama some wiggle room.
Yeah.
But I just don't see it. I
Well,
don't see it.
right now, Auburn's in the top 15. Ole Miss is in the top 15. Texas A&M's in the top 15. Mississippi State's number 17.
Dang.
Georgia will be number 1 in the country. I don't know. I'm just saying.
Ooh.
I think Alabama's the second best team in the country. Now, I always say what I think and what the reality on the field are 2 different things. Like, right. I don't think they should be ranked number 2 just because I think that they're the second best team. I don't think they have the second best resume. I've got them at 4. I think they should be 4 or 5 range, but they put them at 2 already.
Yeah, they definitely would like. They're begging Bama, just please take care of your business, and we want you here.
And I think Georgia's in no matter what. Like, I don't think there's a scenario. I mean, outside of losing 2 games, but Georgia's in. They're in. Outside. I mean, even if Alabama beats them by 14 points in the SEC championship, they're still getting in. They'll be number 4. I think they're getting in no matter what. Cincinnati is we're getting a little off topic, but Cincinnati's the one that's it's tough because they've done everything that you needed to do as a G5 school to get. Well, hold on. They have, because number 1, they were good. They were pretty good 2 years ago. Last year they had a really good season. And then this year they had the schedule that you need. So you need to be coming off a good season. And then you also need to have some Power 5 ranked schools on your schedule that next year, essentially the culmination, which they have, with Notre Dame. They beat Notre Dame on the road.
Yeah.
And then they also beat Indiana, who Michigan's going to play, this week. But to be 6, that's tough. You need a lot of help. You need a lot of help.
You need a lot of help, especially since, and that was the one team that I was waiting for. To see what they would do with Cincinnati, because everybody else outside of maybe Wake Forest, they control their own destiny. You win, you're in, and you just go ahead, run the table, win the conference, you're in. Except Cincinnati, by saying Cincinnati right now is 6, and their resume compared to everybody else's is only going to get worse and worse and worse and worse.
Yeah.
They're in trouble. They are in trouble.
They are.
But no one should be crying. Look, here's the thing. Like, unfortunately, when you play in the American League Conference, whatever it's called, unless your non-conference schedule is you have like at least 2 or 3, top 10 wins, top 15 wins. I mean, it's just tough. It's tough to to fight that uphill battle because, and I told this to Desmond, during our when we were talking today, it's like the committee, and you challenged me on it. I said they should be choosing
the most entertaining, I think is what you said. The most entertaining matchups.
But entertainment it has something to do with it. Like you don't want to pick teams. You want to reward winning, but you also don't want to pick teams that, to be honest, like are just a waste of time to play the games, right? And that will be part of the discussion. If it comes down to 11-1 Michigan team that just beat Ohio State, and their only loss in my scenario is to the Big Ten title champs who have one loss, who are also in the playoff, and now you're talking about an 11-1 Michigan team that beat both Penn State and Ohio State, compared to a Cincinnati team where their best win is over Iowa. They did beat
Notre Dame.
I'm sorry, not Iowa, Notre Dame. Excuse me. Sorry about that. You're probably going to take the 11-1 Michigan team, and which you should. You should.
Now, you shouldn't, because for me, you should.
Well, I think you should. I want to be in, so whatever.
Well, of course. I don't think you should, because Cincinnati's unbeaten. And my thing is, if Cincinnati's not going to get in this year, then they need to have the G5 have their own playoff, because you're never going to let a team in. You're never going to.
They should.
A G5 team, I'm sorry. You're never going to let a G5 team. Like, this is the team to make it. Like, if it's anyone, it would be this G5 team. And it's just crazy that the AP's got them at 2, and then the college football playoff ranking, they come in at 6. It's just
for them to be at 2 is just pathetic. Why are they 2? They're
Cincinnati is number 2 at
they're struggling by Tulane and Navy and Indiana. That Indiana game, forget that 38-24 score. That was a struggle down to the last 5 minutes.
It was. Yeah, they had a score late. It's interesting. I think this will be one of the most exciting finishes for college football. One that we haven't had in a while. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Oklahoma, I think they were number 8, something like that. I mean, it'll be interesting to see how the
Oklahoma's undefeated too. I mean, and it's hard. And see, I'll take Oklahoma over. I'll take an undefeated Oklahoma team over an undefeated Cincinnati team. And part of it is due to, to be honest, is due to the cachet that Lincoln Riley has, and the fact that this is a program that's been in the college football playoff multiple times. So it's like, yeah, I mean, to bring it back to Michigan, it's one of those situations where, like, no, Michigan cannot control their own destiny in terms of if they win out, it's a guarantee that they're going to get in, but they can make it really, really convincing. And, and there are realistic situations outside of their games that can aid them. What happens between MSU and Ohio State, right? Let's say MSU beats Ohio State. Don't think it will happen, but let's say that happens. Okay, like, now you're really talking about Ohio State being out the picture, and and that's boosting up that loss, that moral victory, if you will, for Michigan even more. So it's going to be interesting, man. But I think the main thing for Michigan they need to do, and I'm really interested to see this Saturday, is what level of focus does this team have, right? Do they come out lethargic, or do they come out with their heads on fire? And because one thing I do believe as well is the cat's out the bag, in terms of a weakness that Michigan does have, which is that they like to do the substitutions. So if you can go up tempo on them, you could potentially catch them out of position and take advantage. Does Mike McDonald fix that? Right?
He has to.
I
don't have any concerns.
But Indiana will try. I mean, if Tom Allen doesn't try, then he's not paying attention, and that's just ridiculous. Indiana will try to be up tempo. Now, whether they have the personnel to capitalize is another question. But I want to make sure that they nip that in the bud, get your substitute packages, that situation together, continue hopefully to repeat that performance offensively. I love what I saw from Cade. Maybe get running the football a bit more effectively again. Really use this game. And let's see if you're can make that Penn State and Ohio State game, put yourself in a favorable position. Yeah,
I mean, Indiana, obviously Penix is out. They still have Ty Freifogel, who I think is a really, really good receiver. Last year, obviously, with the healthy Penix, he had a much better season. But I just I think when you don't have your quarterback, like you don't have, your slotted QB1 potential All-American candidate, like I just don't. It's gonna be it's gonna be difficult. It's gonna be difficult for Indiana to beat Michigan if Michigan comes out with the energy and focus that they have all season. I mean, even in the loss last week, I still think they came out pretty focused overall, and we're dialed in. So nothing that has happened outside of having a loss would make
We
me think that they're not going to come out
we
on
can
fire.
warn Michigan fans that Indiana had the benefit of or Michigan State had the benefit of a pick six. Michael Penix not playing in the game, and Indiana had a 17-15 game with Michigan State late. They kicked a field goal, 20-15 game. It was anybody's game last possession against Michigan State.
And Mark, Indiana to me did the best job out of any team this year with containing, not stopping, but containing Kenneth Walker III. And I think that's going to be huge because you saw how, I won't say not effective, but not as explosive the Michigan rushing attack was versus MSU. Well, if Indiana can slow down Kenneth Walker III, imagine what they can do to Michigan's rush offense, right? So, I don't think Indiana is some, walkover, and that's why I think it'll be important for, Kay McNamara to hopefully carry over some of that confidence from last game into this game, because they will probably have to throw the football.
You think we're gonna see a lot of JJ this Saturday?
You know what, man? That needs to be, because I've come to believe that Jim Harbaugh is pretty stubborn in his ways. I think so. No, I think so. I believe actually after that game, and honestly, I can kind of understand if he does play JJ a little bit, because on one hand, you don't want that to be the last big play that's in that kid's memory. You kind of want him to get some good feeling back, right? Because Cade McNamara is one hit away from JJ being in the game, right? So you need JJ to keep some level of confidence wherever it is. So I do think you will see JJ. But the biggest changes that I want to see is I don't want to see this JJ package in the red zone that they keep doing. Because I believe it really slows the momentum of the drive. You do all this work, you get a good drive going, and all of a sudden you get behind the pass of 20, and now you want to do this JJ package. But now you're slowing things up. If you want to use a JJ package, do it at your own 35, at the 50-yard line. You know what I'm saying? Mix it in. But once you get to the red zone, I think your best personnel needs to be on the field. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but so
my biggest thing is, number one, JJ's not Tim Tebow and Cade is Chris Leak. Like, they don't have vastly different styles of playing quarterback. It's roughly about the same. Like, yes, JJ is quicker and faster, but it's not as if, he's Lamar Jackson and Cade is Tom Brady, statue back there. Like, I think you could run the same things with both of the guys. If you're set on playing both of them, I would say give JJ a drive versus giving him one play here and pulling out Cade, and then
absolutely,
you know what I mean? Like, just give him a drive. Like, and if you say Cade's getting the first three, JJ, you get the next one. Cade gets and we roll from there. But I don't like it, especially when Cade is playing the way that he was on Saturday. I just don't like hey, come out for 2 plays, and then we're going to put you right back in on 3rd down, and you got to throw the ball to get us the first down. Like, I don't like that. To me, it's the equivalent a little bit of, like, you having a starting pitcher who's, in the 8th inning, and you're like, well, he's over his pitches, so let's just pull him no matter what. Like, a starting pitcher on a pitch count, but he's red hot. Just let him stay in the game. So that's my thought on it. I think either give him drive, give him a drive. I'd say 3-1. So give Cade 3 drives, give JJ 1, and just let them play the full drive. If it's 3 and out, sorry, you should have kept it going, and just go from there.
Got Jim Coyle joining us for the Indiana Take. Jim can be found on Indiana Rivals, also on ISB Radio. Jim, how are we doing today, man?
Oh, pretty good, guy. How you guys getting along?
We're doing well. So that's Dez up top, Dre, and myself. And I appreciate you being here, Jim.
Good.
Oh, absolutely. Not a lot to look forward to for the Indiana side, I wouldn't imagine. But I'm here in spirit, at least. Anyway, right?
Absolutely.
Well, we appreciate you hanging in there and trying to get through the football season. Trying to look for a win in the Big Ten. Dropped one to Maryland here, 38-35 last weekend. So let's take the big picture view here, Jim, to get us started out. Everybody knows basically about the injury to Michael Penix. That obviously difficult to deal with, but this was a team that was considered by most to be a top 15 to 20 team in the nation coming into it.
And you have no idea how much people are scratching, or people like me are just scratching our head, because everyone always has expectations going into a year, but I've never seen a team that had more legitimate expectations than Indiana did, and just I don't even know what's happening. It's hard to explain. Of course, I have some opinions on certain things, but it has really been a shock to see this team that has the talent that I know that they have go through what they've gone through. Now, Michael Penix, he wasn't the quarterback even before he got hurt again. He just wasn't the quarterback that he was last year. And it was a little surprising to see. And I think Indiana decided that Michael was going to be their guy no matter what. And when he got healthy, he was going to be the guy. And so they got him healthy and he was the guy, but he wasn't the guy. And then you have to go back to Jack Tuttle, which they should have been focusing on him just as much, in my opinion. And it doesn't matter, though. Then he comes in and drives a beautiful drive down against Ohio State. On the first drive, scores a touchdown, and out he goes. And now you're down to drawing up plays on the sideline and pulling people out of the stands and stuff like that.
Yeah,
that's tough. That's tough. Well, so Jim, with the matchup on Saturday, if you could pick one thing that Indiana's going to come out and do, like something that they're going to do well, that they can hang their hat on, what would you say that would be?
Are you kidding me? Is this a trick question? Because last week, and I'm not trying to be opposite, because last week what I saw happen was the most inexplicable. They played one of the lesser talented teams they played after playing the most brutal schedule in the country, without question. They finally they had to go on the road, but you're playing a Maryland team, and they just absolutely lit up Indiana's secondary, Indiana's defense, which had been their stall. That was the thing they could hang their head on, was their defense, because their defense is good. They're solid. They have good players. They were hurt in the secondary. Tywan Mullen and Reese Taylor goes down, but man, to allow 400 yards passing, that's not allowable against a defense that's that good. So I really don't know what they can possibly do good at Ann Arbor in front of 110,000 people against a team that is, first of all, they're pissed off because they lost last week. And now it's like, wow. I'm befuddled by this Indiana team. And it really has just been an unbelievable season to watch it go down, and it's sad.
Well, with Jim, one of the most impressive things I saw from Indiana this year was the job they did against Kenneth Walker III. And Michigan just found out firsthand how real that guy is. He torched us on national TV in front of everyone. But you guys, I think, did the best job on him compared to anybody I've seen this year. I mean, and it actually concerns me for our own rushing attack. I mean, why do you think that was? And who are some key players that Michigan had to worry about in the rushing?
Well,
attack?
Indiana does have. They've played well up front. You've got Ryder Anderson, who transferred in from Ole Miss, who has been just really a solid player all year long. Micah McFadden, of course, an All-American linebacker who has been solid all year long. But they allowed the pass to get to them so much. And I don't know that Michigan has those kind of tools right now. But the running game, they're able to do that. And they're going, if they have any chance at all of even making this a game, they're going to have to control up front. They're going to have to put pressure and just try to force Michigan's offense to do some things they don't want to do. But I'll be honest with you, I'm reaching for stuff right here, right now, because Michigan is up until last week. I thought Michigan was going to win that game. I picked Michigan to win that game because I saw Michigan State play Indiana, and I'm like, okay, Indiana probably should have beat them. They're not that good. They're okay. And that's the same with Cincinnati. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. Indiana should have beat Cincinnati. And I'm like, it blows my mind. But Michigan is just a solid team. Obviously, you don't get to that far in the season being undefeated without being. And they just caught Michigan State on the right day, I guess, but or vice versa. But Michigan is just a strong team. I don't know how. I haven't paid a lot of attention to them up till now. I don't know where they are at the quarterback. And that's, I guess, the question for you guys. How solid are they at quarterback?
Well, you know, that's been, you know, a question all season for us too. Not in terms of who the starter is, but in terms of who should. Well, the Cade McNamara has been the starter all season, but it's been back and forth if that should be the case or not. And I actually, me and Desmond, he'll give his thoughts as well, of course. But we've been in lockstep that we don't like really how the quarterback situation has been handled. You know, they've tried to they started Cade McNamara, but you know, throughout certain drives, they would bring JJ McCarthy, their 5-star true freshman quarterback, in for certain RPOs and certain packages in the red zone. And to be honest, it really doesn't make a ton of sense because he doesn't add like a totally different dynamic than Cade does. But I think it's more or less the landscape of college football today, in which, you know, the transfer portal and trying to make sure certain kids are happy. And I think it actually slows the momentum that certain drives have. But, you know, one encouraging thing that we did see on Saturday was that was the best game Cade McNamara has had as a starter at Michigan in a huge spot. So we'll see if he can continue that. But
hey, man, and confidence is everything. If a guy gets some confidence, it's like, yeah, you stay on the sideline. I got this. Yeah, and that's and no one. Indiana doesn't have that either. Their quarterback situation, obviously, they could end up being down to the walk-on against Michigan on Saturday. You've got Donovan McCulley, who is a true freshman, who actually looked a lot better as the game progressed last week. He seemed a little more comfortable, but still, he's a freshman, man. He was playing in high school last year, and now he's going to be playing up in the big house. I've been to the big house. I know how loud it is, and it is loud beyond belief. And so that's going to be a lot for a freshman to take in. That in and of itself that's a lot, man. I cannot imagine being an 18-year-old kid and looking around at that and hearing that. I'm like, oh no, it's going to be,
you know what?
It's going to be something.
And Des, I want you to give your thoughts right to this, but you know, the whole Michigan, you know, largest crowd thing. It's just, I don't actually. This is a quick 30-second rant. I don't like the construction of the stadium. It's just one big bowl. You know,
and it's below grade. And it's below grade. That's why it's so loud. I was like, yeah, man.
You know, it's kind of weird. You know, I'm actually, I got my, I have my degree from Central Michigan University. So when I was
Chippewas.
Chippewas, yeah. So me and a buddy of mine, you know, we're both Michigan fans, and we decided to go. Central was playing Michigan one year, and so we went, you know, to the game. And I can tell you, like, to be from the visitors end, it is so overwhelming being in that stadium. You know, it's just
my God.
of just you're walking down and it's like it can be intimidating. So yeah, I can imagine.
When I was there, my two roommates had played football for Indiana, and one was a GA at the time. He was on the field, and then me and the other one were in the stands. This is way back, but I remember trying to tell him something, and I had to cup my hands and put them next to his ear and scream into his ear right next to me. And I am not kidding. I have never forgotten that. I've just never forgotten that. And it's just, it's a noise that you cannot comprehend unless you experience it.
Yeah, that's a ton of people, and the Michigan fans, they pack it out, and they are loud. So
now, here's a really funny story for you, because I know you've never heard it. The last time Indiana beat Michigan before they beat them last year was back in '87. I was at that game. I'm that old. I was in school, but it was at Indiana, okay, Memorial Stadium. The ends were not even enclosed then. So it was just two sides of open-ended stadium. Oh my God, I'm drawing a blank on the Michigan's coach, Bo Schembechler. Bo Schembechler goes to the officials, complains that the noise is too loud, and is given a timeout in Memorial Stadium because the noise was too loud.
Wow, that's cool for you right there.
If you wondered if he was legendary or not.
Yeah,
I swear to God, that's a true story. Look it up. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. It was maybe 50,000 people in an open-ended stadium. It was nuts. But that's just a funny little story there. But man, Michigan is looking. I think they've been looking good. Harbaugh has to be feeling good. Of course, I guess none of that matters until the end of the season when they play Ohio State and all that stuff changes around. But to be undefeated leading up to last week, I picked them to win that Michigan State game because I saw Michigan State play, and I didn't get to see the game, so I didn't know what happened. But I was surprised to see Michigan lost that game.
Yeah, it was a close one. It was a really good game. It was an exciting game. And Jim, last question for you, and we can wrap here. But obviously, Tom Allen had a heck of a year. Indiana had a great year last year. With the struggles this year, have you been hearing any whispers or anything as far as hot seat talk? Like I'm not one for any coaches getting tired or anything like that, but
not for Tom Allen at all, because that's way too early. But in my opinion, there is no doubt changes are going to have to be made. And the one thing I say on my radio show is, Tom Allen's a loyal guy, but he's loyal to a fault. And I did not agree with the hire 2 years ago of Nick Sheridan as the offensive coordinator, because at that time they had just gotten rid of one just like him, who he trained under for like 5 years. He came from Michigan. Mike DeBoer had been up there, but and they had Kalen DeBoer last year or the year before. And man, dude, Kalen just lit it up. He's the Fresno State kicking butt out there now. He's got his team ranked. And at that time, they had the opportunity to hire anybody they wanted. I'm like, man, you can go out and hire the red hot. This seat is red hot right now. And he didn't. And he did this loyalty thing. And I just shook my head and I said, that is why you're not going to get better. You have to put the best guy possible in that spot. And they didn't do it. So to me, that seat is red hot. And the offensive line is red hot, because you've got the same guys back who did a hell of a job last year. All of a sudden, I don't know what's going on this year. They can't open a hole. There's no running game. They can't protect the passer. So those two seats, I can see those being pretty warm and a change coming there.
Yeah, wait. How about Nick Sheridan? He just sticks it to Michigan again, besides his own play on the field, and dials up some great plays. God knows he didn't execute that well on the field. Just saying, but whatever.
And then they end up hiring him like they did Mike Hart.
Oh yeah, right. That's what we do. We just recycle. But to his credit, Mike Hart was a Michigan, a really good Michigan.
Oh, and he's loving, and I think he's loving being there too.
He in love with being on the sideline on Saturday. I'll tell you that much.
Well, it was interesting. I actually thought he would get a look as far as that, that offensive coordinator position, because I know he was the running backs coach there, and I wondered if he would get, any consideration for that OC spot.
That may be why he left, number one, and number two, again, that loyalty thing that I'm not a fan of. Mike DeBoard had been there previously, and Nick Sheridan had been with him the whole way. So he was at Indiana before Mike Hart was at Indiana. So I guess he's just got that. They brought in, because you brought in Delon McCullough from the Kansas City Chiefs, who had just spent a couple of years with the world champion Kansas City Chiefs. And I'm like, hello, might know a little something here.
Right.
I'm like, wow. So I wouldn't be surprised to see that happen because I believe he already has the title of assistant head coach. But how do you not turn to a guy who spent time with a world champion NFL team? I mean, those offenses are so far ahead, and there's just got to be so much there that has to be offered from him, I would imagine.
Yeah. Or you can have a different era, but you can have a Charlie Wise situation.
Always. Things never turn out the way they're supposed to when you want them to, right?
That is very true. That is very true. Well, Jim Coyle, thanks so much for joining us. We definitely appreciate it.
Sorry I was late, guys. I didn't get the link, but I appreciate it, man. Anytime, I appreciate it. Love you guys. You guys are great.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Jim. Thanks, everybody, for joining us. We definitely appreciate it. And you guys have a good evening.
See you later.
Have a good night.
Thanks. Bye-bye.